WOWO-AM host Pat Miller recently mentioned a settlement agreement between Baltimore County, Maryland, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that resolves a federal housing complaint about affordable housing and residential segregation. That would have been just fine, except Pat really wanted to talk about Agenda 21, the environmental sustainability agreement that the United Nations established in 1992. As a result, Pat Miller can't properly inform his listeners on either matter.
But if you read Agenda 21, that's what it's saying. Like, let's just look, forget economics for a minute, forget achievement of wealth. Let's just look at a racial balance, okay? If, and I'm going to grab a number that's probably wrong, if the minority balance in the state is 30%, okay, then it needs to be 30% everywhere. 30% minorities in Indianapolis, 30% in Fort Wayne, 30% in Bluffton, 30% in Angola, 30% in Gary. You have to make it equal in each and every county and each and every community. Tell me how that works.
Telling Pat Miller how that works is impossible because none of that is in Agenda 21. There is no mandatory racial integration in Agenda 21. Here's what Pat Miller could have told you. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development announced a settlement agreement with Baltimore County, Maryland to expand affordable housing in higher opportunity areas throughout the county. The Baltimore Sun says the agreement resolves a federal housing complaint filed in 2011 by the local NAACP branch, Baltimore Neighborhoods Incorporated, and 3 county residents. They accuse the county of perpetuating segregated clusters of minority renters with government subsidies by failing to expand affordable options in prosperous neighborhoods. HUD.gov says the agreement commits $30 million over 10 years to create 1,000 affordable housing units through new construction or rehabilitation. The units will be geographically dispersed in neighborhoods that provide access to opportunity. At least 1/3 of the units will be accessible and made available to people with disabilities. The New Boston Post says the county must proactively market the units to potential tenants who are least likely to apply, including African Americans, families, and families with a member who has a disability. Of course, I had to give Pat Miller a call.
Dean, hi, you're on with Pat Miller. Hello.
Hey, Pat, I really want to talk about this public-private partnerships and this Agenda 21 stuff. But when you're talking about these HUD mandates for affordable housing in affluent suburbs, well, are they mentioning these racial breakdowns that you're talking about?
They are mentioning them not racially. What they're mentioning them is as income. They are saying that in the Baltimore area, for example, where they're going to do this testing, they have to move low and very low income people out of the city and into the more affluent suburbs of Baltimore.
Okay, so if they're talking about affordable housing, why are you doing this racial breakdown?
Because that's where Agenda 21 is going. Have you read Agenda 21?
I have not read Agenda 21.
That's where it goes. I mean, it breaks down by achievement of land ownership. It breaks it down racially, it breaks it down by income, and it breaks it down by educational achievement. We have to level everything.
But HUD's not doing that.
No, but this is part of Agenda 21. This is part of, this is the economic leveling. The racial leveling will then come. And let's be honest, if they're going to go into Baltimore, into the city of Baltimore, and they're going to grab the low and very low, much of that is going to be minority.
Okay, well, you cleared it up that HUD is not talking about the racial breakdown. Agenda 21 is.
Yes, but HUD is functioning under the executive order that Clinton signed all the way back in '94.
Pat Miller talks about President Clinton signing an executive order way back in 1994, when he could talk about Agenda 21 being signed by President George H.W. Bush way back in 1992. Pat Miller could be talking about the settlement agreement between HUD and Baltimore County. Instead, Pat Miller talks about the Agenda 21 testing being done there. Fox News is not talking about Agenda 21 or Agenda 21 testing in Baltimore County. Fox News says the NAACP and others sued Baltimore County over alleged housing segregation, and the county has now settled, agreeing to spend $30 million over the next 10 years to build 1,000 homes in affluent neighborhoods. Here's Pat Miller trying to clear the air after the commercial break.
Good friend Dean, who called in. Dean, I went back because something clicked in my head. You are correct that with HUD, they directly are not getting the racial component, but here's what you need to understand. This is stemming, they say, from a complaint filed with HUD in 2011 by whom? The Baltimore County branch of the NAACP, along with a fair housing group, because they want to have affirmatively further fair housing. And when you read what they filed, Dean, in 2011, it is along a racial component. Now, everything that HUD is doing is not, but in Baltimore, it's a huge part of it. Okay, and I don't care. Racial stuff doesn't bother me, okay? But you know, you constantly want to look for the angle that if somebody says something that's even close to being racial, your hair is on fire and you want to throw it all out. You got to sit down and look at all of it, Dean, okay? If you haven't read Agenda 21, my good friend, you're smart, and you know you're smart, so go read.
This is the kind of split-minded, right-wing, conservative, capitalist, Christian, race-baiting nonsense we get in Fort Wayne, Indiana. 3 hours a day, 5 days a week on WOWO-AM 1190, and we call it the Pat Miller Program.